Hi, I'm Linda Vater, and I'm delighted to be partnering with Homeworthy to bring you into the garden, one of my favorite and I think most meaningful places to spend time. You may remember my tour of our Oklahoma City cottage, where my signature style first found a wider audience on the Homeworthy channel. My gardens reflect a mix of classic structure and cottage charm, shaped by years of hands-on experience, a lot of mistakes, and a deep appreciation for beauty in every season. Together, we'll explore timeless ideas, practical tips, and inspiration to help you create a garden that feels truly like home. Join me in living a garden-inspired life.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Well, this is a heads up to any of you who are first-time gardeners, or any of you who garden in clay like I do, and across the South, a lot of us do garden in clay. This is my #1 bulletproof perennial. These perennials can really take almost anything that weather or really bad growing situations can throw at them. These are hail resistant, they are heat resistant, they're cold resistant, they're wind resistant. And part of that is probably because they originated on the prairie. They're native prairie plants. And even though a number of them I'm going to show you have been hybridized, nevertheless they have that really good DNA in their veins. So the #1 is Echinacea purpurea. If that name is familiar to you as a cold remedy, then that would be this same plant. Again, there are lots of new varieties of this that are in different hues. Some of them in kind of a, there are some in white, there are some in kind of a gold orange color, but I have found that just the regular old Echinacea purpurea or purple coneflower is the one that performs the best. It's a pollinator magnet. It has wonderful cone head seed pods once it finishes blooming. I love the fact that the seed can be harvested and gifted to others. You can scatter it around in different places in your garden. It makes a wonderful cut flower with or without petals. And there are some varieties that where the petals kind of radiate out, and some that where they kind of grow down towards the ground. Look for a form that is pleasing to you. Now, I don't have these in bloom right now to show you, and that's intentional, because you can probably find these in your nursery and garden centers right now. You can get them in the ground and they'll be blooming in your own garden. Like I say, these are tough as nails. They're drought tolerant, and once you get them established, they really are pretty carefree. So now let's move on to the Now, #2 on my list may be the easiest to grow plant ever, and that's Rudbeckia. It is, you probably know it as a black-eyed Susan. Some people call it a brown-eyed Susan. The variety that you see fairly commonly, that is probably the most vigorous variety out there, is Rudbeckia goldsturm. I'll put some pictures of it in bloom where it was very rambunctious in my garden. Southern Living came out once to do nothing but just film the Rudbeckia, and it's absolutely beautiful. Again, it can handle any kind of weather condition, poor soil, it's drought tolerant. I also like it because it can handle part shade. Now, that said, this can sometimes, I have found, be a little bit invasive. So when it goes to seed and after the flowers are finished, if you don't want it to really propagate itself and proliferate around the garden, then you might want to deadhead it. It's really beautiful. It's a very perky flower. It has that quintessential color that we associate with mid to late summer kind of gold. Now, another variety that I really like of Rudbeckia is called Rudbeckia maxima, and I love it because it has these wonderful large blue-green leaves. I got this at Bustani Farm in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is also extremely tough. You can see here it's getting ready to put on a flower. This is a softer yellow, what I think of more as maybe a springy yellow. It doesn't have quite so much gold in it. I've got it growing here in tandem with some lilies and these beautiful allium. I love it in any kind of gray montage where I'm growing other gray plants along with it. And one of those other gray plants is the next plant, my next tough as nails bulletproof plant, and that would be Sedum Autumn Joy. I love it this time of year, and when it first comes out in the spring, it's got these wonderful blue-green tufts. You can literally just break off a stem, stick this right in the dirt, and it will make a whole nother plant. Now, later in the season, I would say probably, depending on your light conditions, in late July, sometime in August, it will put out these beautiful umbral-shaped, kind of flat head, pale pink flowers that are absolutely beautiful. And I would say in my own garden, it gets the prize for being absolutely the most efficacious pollinator magnet. It will attract just every kind of pollinator out there. It's absolutely beautiful. The flowers are great as cut flowers. They are beautiful when they are dried. It's just really a really wonderful plant. You can grow it in containers. You can grow it in the ground. It makes a wonderful border plant. And I have seen, my friend Brenton in Australia, we just did a garden tour at his home. He uses it in an absolutely magnificent way in huge swaths of a flower bed. Could not be easier is another plant that you can readily share with others and spread around your garden, and that would be Sedum Autumn Joy. Now, a cousin of Sedum Autumn Joy is another variety that I really, really like. We're going to come into the sun here. And this one is called Pure Joy, I believe. This is a proven winter plant. I started this a number of years ago. I like the fact that it's got kind of ribbed edges to the leaf. It's got an interesting leaf form. It is very, very easy to grow. It grows a little bit more compactly, and I really like it more for its growth performance and its growth form than I do really for the flower itself. But if you want to mix this with the Sedum Autumn Joy, it makes a wonderful counterpoint to the large leaf of the Sedum Autumn Joy. And you can see there that it's really, really a pretty combo. Now, there are so many different kinds of sedum that you can get that have purple leaves, variegated leaves. I would say that practically all of them are going to be wonderful in your garden. So if there's ever a category of plant that you want to experiment with, I would say go after the sedums. Now, one thing that they demand, maybe unlike the other two plants, and I shouldn't even say demand, they're not that finicky, but they do appreciate a little bit better drainage. So if you can, you might want to mix a little bit of grit into your planting medium. For me, that's builder's sand. But they will reward you with great, beautiful growth that is not overly aggressive and I think looks beautiful absolutely everywhere and anywhere in your garden. I've got it growing both in the front and in the back. Now, let's go on to another selection. Now, I wish I could tell you exactly what variety this was because it performs absolutely brilliantly in my garden. And if you're ever in the area and you would like me to share some of it with you, I would happily do so. But as a broad category, it's Veronica. There used to be a variety called Sunny Border Blue, I believe, that was a gorgeous blue color. This is more of a lavender shade that has elongated blooms that are really, really beautiful. I like the way they look when the blooms are fresh and also after they are a little bit more mature. And you can see here that it's got deep green glossy foliage that's kind of a long slender leaf. You can see here that it's getting ready to put out a lot of buds. It looks beautiful in tandem with blue larkspur that's in a different shade. And I let this pretty much just run amok in my garden. It's a big spreader, but it's not overly aggressive and it's not difficult to relocate or move. But seldom do I do that because I love the way it looks. It looks great with pale pinks, with really vibrant oranges and yellows, and obviously it looks very, very pretty with this kind of coral colored geranium. Now, another plant that I think is much maligned and has been maligned by me in the past, and that is just your basic chrysanthemum. A lot of times after I do my fall display in the front, I will take some of those chrysanthemums and actually plant them in the ground as a long-term perennial. And right here I've got a tuft that looks beautiful with the veronica, and this is a white chrysanthemum. And I'm going to let it go ahead and bloom, and then I will cut it back, give it a really good feed, and then it will bloom again in the fall. Now, if I wanted to completely delay its bloom, I would cut this back by about half until the 4th of July, keeping it sheared back, and that way I would have that many more flowers in the fall. I kind of like having some now, some later, but as a plant that does great in almost any kind of soil under almost any kind of conditions, consider the common chrysanthemum. There are different varieties that are really more of a gardening type chrysanthemum, but don't be a plant snob like I was. If they've got a role in your garden, then by all means plant them. Now, another fairly common plant that does brilliantly is just tall phlox. There are a lot of different varieties. I have the plain old common version that's kind of a purpley pink that blooms in late summer, that's extremely prone to powdery mildew, but nevertheless, I think it's a really beautiful plant, and it does really well. I would advise you, however, if you're just starting out, to look for one of the cultivars that is a little bit more better behaved and has some disease resistance. This is, I believe, Phlox David. I can't remember exactly. It was gifted to me by a friend. David is a beautiful white variety that you might want to look for. But any of the newer varieties, Proven Winners puts out some, I believe Monrovia puts out some. Any kind of tall phlox that has been bred to be disease resistant is definitely an option. These look beautiful planted with penstemons, with lilies, with daylilies, and I think would be a great option for you guys to look for when you go to your nursery for another tough as nails plant. Now, you may ask me, so what makes a plant hail resistant? This is a perfect example. It's got these long, slender leaves, and when the hail comes down, it literally just brushes against the slender foliage and falls to the ground. Unlike a really broad, expansive leaf like a hosta, not so much. So look for some tall phlox to add to your perennial border. Let's go on to one more. Now, truth be told, I don't have nearly as many flowering perennials as I once did when I started to garden. We think of perennials as maybe being a low maintenance type of plant that, since you don't have to plant them annually, then we think that they might be a little bit less labor intensive. I don't think so, partly because they need to be deadheaded, they need to be divided, sometimes they don't make it. They can be either overly aggressive or they don't spread fast enough. Now, are they beautiful? Absolutely. But as I get older, I prefer the blooms to come from flowering shrubs and bulbs far more than perennials, partly because perennials aren't in bloom for a very long period of time, at least in my Oklahoma garden, before the heat gets them. I often say there's two seasons, there's before the heat and after the heat, and many blooming perennials will bloom and then immediately succumb to those intense temperatures. But another one that I can't imagine any garden without, that's very easy, especially if you give it good drainage, and that is just your classic daisy. These are just regular old Shasta daisies that were gifted to me by a friend, so they have special meaning. They couldn't be any easier. They do bloom for a pretty long period of time. I love the fact that they bloom in white. They look especially pretty with other white blooming annuals, I think. And of course, at night, because they're white, they really have the capacity to illuminate the garden. They also provide a great contrast against anything that's got really dark foliage, like this dark purple crimson pygmy barberry. That's hard for me to say. But I really think that you ought to consider growing some daisies if you haven't already incorporated them into your flower beds, because they are, after all, I think the sweetest of all flowers. And I've got one more to show you. Well, so many of you ask me about this beautiful lavender blooming plant that really is magnificent in my spring garden when the tulips are in bloom. And that is just the common thrift or creeping phlox. The variety that I grow is emerald blue, but you can get it in other colors, including white and kind of a deep purpley pink. I really like that lavender color. You can see there's just a few hangers on that are still in bloom. It's really, really lovely. Now, if you have it in enough sun, it does want full sun. And if you give it enough full sun, then it makes a really beautiful, just kind of like a ground cover in the summertime. It doesn't continually bloom, but that's okay because it kind of takes up real estate. I really like the way it looks when it intermingles with other types of ground covers or other types of plants. In this case, I've also got some vinca minor growing through it, some golden feverfew, and other things that kind of insinuate themselves into its really delicate ferny foliage. Now, sometimes in the past, after it blooms, I've come in with a weed eater and I just shear off the top. I'm not having to do that this year, I don't think, because since I had that terrible ice storm and I have so much more sun, it's already thickening up. It's still this vibrant green, and I may not have to prune it back and shear it back for it to get really bushy and thick again. So I'll keep you posted on that. But that is another very, very easy, low-growing ground cover type perennial to grow that has magnificent spring color, but also is presentable for the rest of the year. So there you go. There is a list of some absolutely bulletproof plants for new gardeners, for experienced gardeners, and for really any gardeners that don't want to work too hard. Well, you are not going to want to miss today's garden life, because I am going to share with you top 10 perennials anyone can grow that you probably want to be planting right now. I've done this same topic in the past, but it was with things that were a little bit, well, they were just a different color palette. Today I want to concentrate on the color palette of spring. So most of these are going to be in yellows, blues, whites. Well, what do you say? Let's do it. Make sure to stay to the end and we'll give you a comprehensive list of all of these plants, and you can take it to the nursery with you when you go shopping this spring. Okay, before we get started, Stuart, did you enjoy the snow/rain this morning?
So crazy.
Yeah, and it was crazy. And we've got a freeze warning for tonight that I'm not too worried about it, and I'll tell you why at the very end of today's video. But let's just take a moment to look at how beautiful the topiary look on the front porch. I'm getting ready to bring them all in to do a little tending to them and to protect them in case we do have a freeze tonight. And well, I just think they're sweet. They're putting on all sorts of new growth, and it makes me happy. Okay, so let's start out with number 1 of my top 10 perennials. Now, the qualifications for being one of my top perennials are, number 1, they have to be so easy to grow that almost anyone can grow them. They have to be able to handle both extremes, both heat and cold. They have to be pretty adaptable to almost any type of soil, though all of them will appreciate better drainage. They have to be relatively low maintenance, and they also have to have a pretty good form all year round. So that said, let's go on to number 1. Okay, the other reason that I want to share these perennials with you right now is because they are also available right now, and you'll want to plant them right now so they have a chance to get established before any kind of heat sets in, or at least the kind of heat that sets in my Zone 7 garden. You guys multiple of you have requested that I start sharing with you at the beginning of each video where I garden. And I do. I garden in Oklahoma City in Zone 7B. Okay, so Stuart has already highlighted a number 1 very easy to grow perennial, and that's dianthus. You can find it everywhere in nurseries right now. I love this little white variety. I don't even know exactly what variety it is, but you can get all sorts of dianthus that will grow in pinks, in dark pink, in red, in white, and in kind of a lilac color. Well, I love this white color, and I also love the color of the foliage. It's kind of that blue-green. Oftentimes when I am getting ready to plant a perennial, I will grow it in pots first and then install it in my garden later. And this is a perfect example of that. I've got 2 clumps of this dianthus in this Easter basket pot. I've got another clump up here with the moss, and pretty soon I will be planting them in the border. And I'm going to show you where I'm going to plant them and why when we come back. But you can definitely see how that white dianthus will fit into the tableau on these berms that kind of cascade down to the sidewalk. So in the past, I had 2 boxwood that were planted in these little squares right here. Subsequently, I thought they got too big, and so I transplanted them to another area. But now I have these 2 perfect squares on either side where I plan to plant that dianthus. And it will do really well here for a couple of different reasons. Number 1, it can grow in full sun, and I certainly get full sun here from this southern exposure. Number 2, it really likes a little bit better drainage than some other perennials, and this berm is planted on a grade. And number 3, I'm going to plant it pretty shortly, and that will help it get established before the heat sets in. It will also be able to avoid any kind of overwatering or kind of rot, because once it starts growing, it's going to grow and cascade over these bricks, and it will really like being protected from any kind of soggy, wet soil once it sets in. And number 2 is Nepeta, or catmint, commonly known as catmint. I have a number of different varieties growing. Actually, I don't think you can go wrong on any of them. Some of the more popular varieties include Walker's Low, and this is Persian Blue, and I think it's really beautiful. I love the way this creates these tight little tufts when it first comes out. It will put out really sweet lavender blue towards purple flowers as it begins to bloom, and just look how healthy it is. And I've got it running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 tufts of it that run along the sidewalk leading up to the front porch in that characteristic blue, and also in that characteristic blue-gray foliage I love so much. Now, you may also recall that in the window box just last week, I planted another variety that has a little bit more of a yellow leaf called chartreuse on the loose. But again, I don't, chartreuse on the loose. I know, and I love it because it reminds me of our grand dog Goose. We always say when he plays, it's Goose on the loose. So, but I digress. You really can't go wrong with any form of it, either in a container planting or in your garden beds. Once it blooms, if you want to contain it and you want to manage its shape and keep it from getting too leggy, then after it blooms, just shear it back and it will come back just, well, full throttle. Now, one thing it can be prone to is spider mite, but again, just keep an eye on it. Treat it with some insecticidal soap if that's a problem, and you can always cut it all the way back and just start again with new, fresh foliage. Okay, do you like my pointer? This is a little spade that my friend Kat gave me. She lives in California, and I do just love it. And I wish I could tell you the brand right now, but I can't, but I'll get it for you. Okay, so let me point out a couple of things before I move on to our next must-have perennial to plant right now, and that is, look at this gorgeous Encore azalea. I believe this one is Empress, and look how pretty it looks with this bacopa growing in front of it. That's just a hanging basket that I just dropped there. And then also look at all of the flowers on my rabbit eye daisies. I think this one takes the cake. So it's very pretty. It's very, very springy, and I love it. And I'm really surprised. My other Encore azaleas that were more established, they took a little bit more of a hit in the cold than this one, but I think it looks beautiful. But again, I get back to the subject. So the next plant that you need to have that is just so easy, really any plant in the daisy family. We're probably most familiar with daisies. They are a leucanthemum, a form of leucanthemum, and I have some. These are complements of the Southern Living Plant Collection. I've got 1, 2, 3 big bunches of them over here. I also have some on I can't talk. I'm a little bit cold, on autumn's edge, because obviously they will also bloom into autumn, and they're absolutely gorgeous. This is one that is a double flower in a pale yellow. I will put the link to them if I can find it. And well, it's just so easy. It's so adaptive to any kind of soil. And as I said earlier, I think its foliage looks pretty good all summer long, even if it goes through a spell of not putting out any blooms, because it might be prohibitively hot. But you can find these now. I think you can't go wrong with daisies. Nothing is sweeter and nothing more befits the kind of aura of a cottage garden. And next is the whole family of sedums. There are so many different varieties. I really won't even point out that many. This one I have shown to you many times. This is Pure Joy, Sedum Pure Joy. Look at how darling it looks in these containers. It's that traditional, or that kind of signature color of mine, that blue-gray foliage, and I absolutely love it. The same color is also repeated over here in absolutely, I think, maybe the most easy perennial to grow, and that is Sedum Autumn Joy. It's absolutely beautiful, and I need to just break off some pieces and spread it around even more. You can see a clump there, another clump I started next to it. There's a clump over in there underneath that rose. I probably need to relocate it. But then there's other kinds that have a color that might be more befitting your garden. Let me pick up a plant tag down here. And that is also great if you want something that spills out over the edge. And I've got an example of this right here.
We're taking the scenic route too.
We're taking the scenic route. Now, isn't this gorgeous? I love its growth habit. I should probably have said that another reason I select these perennials is also because they're so easy to propagate. And this is so easy to propagate that you just literally can pinch off a piece and stick it in the ground. I've showed you that before. But I also love, from a design standpoint, the way it's got kind of a reddish purple cast to the stem and how beautiful that looks with surrounding plants like this Obsession Nandina, and ultimately even the pink on the roses. I think it looks really beautiful. So I've got a clump there, and I've got another clump down here. Look, I mean, look at these better boxwood. Are they not? If you haven't watched Why This Is My Favorite Plant, then you need to. Oh, gorgeous. This is Kaleidoscopilia, and it also looks beautiful with this sedum, and it will continue to spread, not only because that's his growth pattern, but also because I will probably be spreading it around because it's just such a beauty. Okay, well, next up on my list is salvia. I have promised you that ultimately this would bloom in this characteristic, just absolutely gorgeous bluish purple, and indeed it has. This variety is East Friesland, but you really can't go wrong with almost any variety. I have some that grows in a very characteristic kind of a let's call it a deep pink, a lipstick pink, but look how beautifully that coordinates with the color of the pansies and the violas. And again, this is repeated. I've got some here, there's some on the other side of this berm, but look at how it brings your eye up and around. And then there are a number of clumps up here on the upper terrace. And not only does this grow so beautifully all summer long, all I have to do is keep it deadheaded, periodically shearing it back, and it will pump out these gorgeous blue blooms all summer long. In addition, it goes to seed pretty easily, but not in an obnoxious way. You can see right here that I've got some little babies. There's one there. Here's a little baby that came up over here, and that's Mother Nature's design. I can either choose to leave it where it is, or I can gift it, or I can move it around the garden. But definitely, I think salvia in all of its various forms is a winner. It's easy to find right now. It's easy to divide. It's easy to care for, and it can handle anything Mother Nature throws at it. Okay, yesterday I showed you on Signature Style Saturday that Hub's got a new toy, those Knox monoculars. I think they are going to be so much fun. So many of you are interested in them, and I also have them on my list, maybe for Easter. But since Hub's got a new toy, so did I. Yes, it is another Works tool, and let me show you why I wanted it. This is, I've never had this in their line before. You guys know that I have several things in the Works Garden Products line, but here's why I want this, my new tool. And what is the new tool? It is an edger, a weed eater, a trimmer, and most of the time now, since I moved to the cottage, I do have somebody that comes and they mow for me and they edge for me. At the other house, I did it for probably 35 years myself, but now, mostly because I just don't want to store the equipment, I don't have room for it, I let Kayla's guys do it for me. It's such a small area that it's really not cost prohibitive. But the other thing is that I noticed, like right now, the grass on these front berms looks so green and lush, and quite frankly, it looks very, very Eastery. Stuart, can we step back here and get a full-blown effect that it kind of looks like a living Easter basket, and it will continue to evolve with more of those pink tulips as they come out. But I think part of the reason it looks like that is because of the lush grass. And I kind of think it looks sweet growing a little bit longer. But what I really want to make sure that I control is the grass around the edges. If you guys have, if you want to grow a native lawn, if you want to be, a pollinator friendly lawn, and you want to let your nutsedge and your henbit and your daisies just run wild for pollinators. I said daisies, I meant dandelions. More power to you. But one thing you can do to keep it urban friendly and neighborhood friendly, and that's by just doing the same thing that I'm going to do with my grass using my new Works tool, and that is I can leave it long, but I will always have a nice clean edge. So it will be lush and tall in the middle, but around the edges it will be very tailored, it will be very groomed, and it will be very manicured. And that way it looks intentional. It won't take me any time to do it. The grass in the middle will actually enjoy being a little bit longer, and it will just look as if it's intentional and not that it's just been raining so much that I couldn't get to the mowing. Now, some of you comment and wonder why I name different parts of my garden. Well, part of it is that I can then, when I'm writing and recording things in my garden journal, or I can even, like when I say, Stuart, let's get a really good picture of something, then he knows geographically where that's located in the garden, and so do I. So I can say, and I can tell you that along Autumn's edge, I have another one of those perennials that does just brilliantly. And that would be Guara, G-U-A-R-A. You can see a clump of it right here. It blooms in white. It's also called, I believe, whirlybird. And I've got another clump right here. It is very tolerant of different kinds of soil, though it definitely appreciates better drainage, which is one of the reasons I have it here on the berm. It wants to be in full sun, and it actually is very drought tolerant once it gets established. It comes in different colors, all befitting my the landscape shades that I have here: white, pink, and maybe even a little darker pink. But as I said, I've got two clumps here. I could cut it back right now. I could shear it back, and that will make that stand of Guara that much taller and that much more full. The other thing I like about it is it really does well in the summertime. So when it gets very hot, it's nice here to have this blousy, hovering floral form in the garden. It looks great, I think, with barberries and with this fire chief arborvitae, and it will really help fill this corner. Okay, another tough as nails perennial that I think looks beautiful in the spring, beautiful in the summer, and beautiful in the fall, and that is yarrow. It's right here at your feet, Stuart, and I love the way it looks when it first starts coming out. It's got almost a ground cover effect. It's blue-green in color in its foliage, and I just think it looks ferny and delicate and very befitting of the spring season. You'd be able to find it at most garden centers and nurseries right now. Mine blooms in white, but you can also find it blooming in yellow. There's a variety, I believe, called moonshine, I believe, but it's whatever, it will bloom in yellow. It's very, very tough. It's very drought tolerant. You can just whack it back in the middle of the summer and it will come back again with beautiful new foliage. This came from just a small clump that I planted last year, and you can see that it's already spread to another clump there. It will spread, but not in an obnoxious, invasive kind of way, so you can easily propagate it, divide it, and share it with others, or share it in other places of your garden. And I think as long as we are on location along Autumn's edge, there's a couple of others here that I think are worth noting. I don't know that I would put this on my list, but as I'm showing you these, I see a happy surprise over here. In fact, I'd forgotten I'd even planted them. So I have some baptisia. I've got one here, and there's another clump right here. here. And again, I forgot that I even planted it. It has that same blue-green foliage I love so much, and the leaves will be kind of large and round, but a beautiful textural contrast to the other things growing in this area. Now, I think it's a very tough plant. I love the color of its blooms, but the one thing that I have noticed is it's kind of a downside is it does take a while to get established and really perform very well. So that's one reason that I wouldn't say it's just tough as nails and easy that anybody can grow it. It requires patience, and not a lot of us have that when it comes to gardening, and I am first and foremost the biggest offender. Something else as long as we're over here that I would include on that list, and it's a plant that we all too often discard when we're finished with them in the fall, and that is chrysanthemum. So these are white chrysanthemums that I had last year. They were in some container plantings, and I just planted them into the garden bed. I'll keep whacking them back until around the 4th of July, and they will bloom in white and be really stunning, I think, as a counterpoint to the other colors here, and look very autumnal because they are mums after all. So think twice before you discard the mums that you have for maybe just display only in the fall and plant them in your flower beds. Well, a friend of mine years ago, she said that she thought that this next candidate was her signature flower, or maybe I told her it should be because she could grow it so effectively, and that was scabiosa. And you can see that I've got a number of clumps of it. Here's a clump right here. I've got a clump here, and look at all those emerging buds. Also look at the heavy clay soil on my pointer, which is just the nature of my soil, especially when it's wet and heavy like it is right now. So I've got a number of clumps. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. These all started out as 4-inch plants last year. I've got it in several locations, and you'll notice that when it blooms, it'll bloom in a pale lavender color that will coordinate beautifully with the darker purple of the salvia and also with the lavender of the nepeta. So that's a good trio right there. If you want to plant 3 in 1 and you can have that kind of purple lavender garden look, I would plant nepeta, I would plant scabiosa, and I would plant salvia all in the same location. And you'll see that, like the nepeta, I've got it planted all up and down the walkway up until I get to the front porch. So there's some there, and then if you'll follow me this way, Stuart, you can see that it even has started to wrap around the corner. And look here. Look at those buds that are just getting ready to pop. And there will be an absolutely beautiful companion to the nepeta that I've got here, but I also think that all of these purples and blues and this blue-gray foliage looks spectacular with anything that has chartreuse in its leaf color, and that would include like Miss Lemon Abelia, Lemon Lime Nandina, Sunshine Ligustrum, really anything. This Golden Feverfew, I think it all looks beautiful together, and maybe one of my favorite planting combinations. That would be called flanting. Flavington. Anyhow, it all looks beautiful together as a trio or just kind of a quartet. And I definitely think if you're just looking for something and you want to start out with a tried and true composition, that would be it. Try something that has a yellow foliage in shrub form and that in its floral form will come out blue. Okay, and finally, penstemon. Look at that beautiful Husker's red. It's absolutely gorgeous. It will bloom in white with some of that same dark purpley red in the stem. I've got one clump there, one clump here, and a number of other smaller clumps that kind of go in and around. There's one right there by the Sunshine Ligustrum, in and around Autumn's Edge. Can you see it right there? Yeah, oh, and there's another one, yeah. Like I say, there's a number of them. I also have some of it that is in green leaf. This is one right here And happily it decided to plant itself there because I don't even know what this shrub is, but I think it's a goner, so it will just take its place. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and cut it back right now for more and delayed bloom, but I think I'm just going to let it do its thing. It almost looks like a small shrub when it's in bloom because it blooms in such a mass, and the girth of each segment is just so large that it's really, really spectacular. And it makes not just a beautiful clump, but a nice vertical element when it comes into bloom. And it really, if you get down low, you can see how gorgeous it looks at landscape level in terms of the composition of just the design. And I think it's really, really, really beautiful. Lastly, and a bonus, easy to grow. You might want to put it on your list because you can find it in garden centers right now, and that is just tall phlox. I especially love Phlox David that blooms in white. Last year I had one that bloomed in kind of a fuchsia color called Kapow, and it can be drought tolerant, heat tolerant, looks really, really beautiful. Its downside is it can be prone to powdery mildew, but you know what? There are new varieties out there that are not so prone, and if you keep an eye on it, it will nevertheless perform beautifully for you. So when we come back, let's make some closing statements, and we'll probably try to put up a screenshot of all of these for you. Okay, if you're worried, if you live in this area and you are under a freeze warning, well, obviously you want to take into account where you are and I guess basically the nature of your garden. But here's why I'm not too concerned about it. I've checked 4 different weather apps and only one of them says it's going to get down to 32. The other thing I know is that it has been very, very warm. So the residual heat that's in the ground in those temperatures, since the temperatures have been so warm, that will help keep those plants warm, and they will be warmer within that soil. If you've put out some annuals in container baskets or things like that, you might want to bring them in or cover them. If you have a very, very prized specimen that you think can't handle a freeze even as light as 32, you might want to protect it with some frost claws. For example, I've got these large eugenias that I have to take in every year, but these eugenias are actually cold tolerant down to about, I think, 26 or 27, so I'm not going to be too concerned. Also, these have acclimated to these cooler temperatures because they've been in situ for about a month now, and they've really adjusted to it, so I'm not too concerned. Bless you, Stuart. If anything had a lot of new growth on it that you were afraid might get frostbit, then definitely you can cover that with some frost claws, throw a sheet over them or something, but I'm really not too concerned. If you jump the gun and you put out lots of tomatoes and peppers and you think it can't handle them based on where they are, then you might want to throw some kind of, a light blanket over them. But I'm not too concerned because not only do I really question whether or not it will get down to 32, but what's perhaps more important is how long does it stay at 32 or below it. And if you look at the hour by hour forecast on your weather forecast, it tells you that probably it's not going to last that long. So if you are wondering why I'm not freaking out, that is why. The other reason I'm not is because all of my hydrangeas bloom on new wood, not on old wood, so I'm guaranteed of having a hydrangea show even if it does get down to freezing or under freezing temps. So keep an eye out, but don't be too concerned. Just know thy garden. I've said it a million times, know thy garden, and just trust that your garden itself may know what to do to protect the things you have in the ground. You guys take care. Happy Garden Life Sunday. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Upper Terrace and Signature Style Saturday. We have so many fun projects going today. We're going to topiary a sunshine ligustrum. We are going to start an Easter basket for our Easter table. I want to show you a really dramatic vignette that I'm creating in the back, which is almost finished, starring Platinum Beauty Lamondra. Well, what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, I had a group of about 30 here day before yesterday. They were from a local walking group from a nearby church. And a number of people were asking me if I could name one plant that was Oklahoma tough for the summer and had really good, almost four-season interest, what would it be? And the first thing that came to mind for me is sunshine ligustrum, or I say ligustrum, you say ligustrum. Whichever way you say it, it is absolutely wonderful in the garden. And I grow it in a couple of different ways. I like it kind of full and flouncy. You know, it can get to be 3 to 6 feet high or 3 to 4 feet wide. And I like to grow it beautifully where there's kind of movement to it, and when there's a breeze, it kind of blows. But where I like to use it a little more dramatically, and that is when I kind of topiary it. Now, at the other house, I topiaried it into kind of a conical shape, and I used it back in the potager. Here on the upper terrace, right in proximity to the beautiful East Friesland salvia, this is where I think it really is gorgeous. So you might want to screenshot this image because it is just beautiful with the blue and with the pinks. It's just gorgeous. But I also like the fact that up there I have it clipped a little bit more tightly. So how do you do that? Well, as I've always said, when you are topiarying anything, you just have to be a little bit brave. Remember, if you make a wrong cut, it will grow out. So this one, and by the way, when you are shopping for yours, and I just saw a whole big display of these at my local, I can't remember if it was Lowe's or Home Depot, but they had some gorgeous specimens. And what you want to do is kind of buy one that's already assuming the shape that you want. So if you want it to be tall and flouncy, buy one that's kind of already assuming that shape. But if you're like me, and a lot of times you are clipping and pruning them into more of a spherical form or kind of a smushed spherical form, kind of like a pancake form, then buy it as close to that shape as possible. So you can do this in a number of different ways, you guys. I sometimes just use scissors, and you can do that because when the new growth comes out, it is very tender. It is very easy to clip. You don't have to have any special tools whatsoever, just an inexpensive pair of shears that you use just for that purpose. And sometimes after it's already in place and I'm just trying to kind of clip it to keep it within that globular form, then I use scissors. When I'm first establishing the form, then I might want to use some long-handled pruners. And you guys know I have two favorites. This is my long-bladed, I should say, Barnell pear. And that's hard to say. That's hard for me to say. And I can definitely use these. And I kind of start at the top and I work my way down. Sometimes when I'm pruning them before they get in the ground, these are almost a little too long. And in that case, I might use these Okasuni pruners because they're not quite as long. And when I'm working on a table or something, they're a little bit more manageable in size. And typically, you know, when I do this, it's a no-brainer. It's common sense. Most of gardening is common sense. I try to have something underneath to catch my clippings. And then you just go around the perimeter. This is easy, but the difference between the before and after, I think, is pretty amazing. And the thing is that this ligustrum it's hardy all the way down to zone 6. So my family in Indiana was asking me if they can grow it, and I said, oh yes, I think you can grow it. And especially now with every place getting a little bit hotter, look to a lot of the plants that have historically just been for the south, and most of them and certainly most of them in the Southern Living Plant Collection would fall into that category. So I just try to get as much symmetry as possible. And by the way, if you want to take some of those clippings and use them somehow in sweet, tiny little bouquets, they would be perfect for spring, perfect for Easter, without much fuss at all. And when you have these established in your garden, not only that, you're just pruning from your own landscape, and it's an inexpensive way to make lots of tiny bouquets. Now, I like the definition to be as much on the bottom as on the top. I kind of needed a bigger table, you guys. So here is the first of my questions of the day. Do you guys, if you grow ligustrum, do you like it more flouncy and cascading and full and billowy like that I have on the east side? Or do you like it in a more spherical shape? Or do you like it both ways? Can you swing both ways? So okay, so look at how pretty that's looking. And periodically I just torque it. And then you can see which is the prettiest vantage point, which is the most perfect. And by the way, of course, over time, as you continue to shear it and as it continues to grow, it gets more perfect in form. If you're kind of a perfectionist like moi, it gets more perfect in time. So we're gonna put like a plant profile up right here, Stuart, on it, and so you guys can screenshot this and look at its profile and see if it's right for you. So as I have said many, many times, probably one of my favorite combos is this chartreuse yellow, especially in the springtime, and purple. So when all of my larkspur is in bloom, it's going to be fabulous. So here's kind of a planting tip. If you are going to marry this plant with some others that are blooming, I highly recommend any kind of blue salvias. I would recommend larkspur. I would recommend any kind of veronicas in that lavender. But if you like really bright primary colors, I think it would look great with red too. So right now, my tulip palette in the front, mostly pinks, but boy, this would look gorgeous if you had a really, really deep red as well. So there you go. Here is a gift that keeps on giving through the seasons in containers. And by the way, it does brilliantly in containers. I have even planted it in window boxes before. It looks great in kind of an urn where you've got this tight spherical form and then cascading around the edge and down the sides. You could have some kind of seasonal color. I think it would be fabulous with some kind of cascading calibrachoa or million bells in red or in purple. I think that would be fabulous. Scaviola and that wonderful periwinkle blue purple would be great. So it's just kind of how do you like to play with your Crayola color box. So there you go, one of my favorite plants to play with, Sunshine Ligustrum, and as always you guys, I'll put a link below. Well, come on in, everyone, to at least the dining patio in the backyard. I've got it, I would say 95% staged the way I want it to be. There'll definitely be more plants coming in that will populate the plant stands and things. And you can probably hear in the background Javier and Sergio working on the other side. But I want you to come in because this is what I've been going for. This money shot, so that when all of this stuff is grown out and filled in and mature, it will be almost gasp worthy when you come through the gate. And how I am achieving that is a plant I'm a little bit obsessed with right now. I have shown it to you in the past. I kind of thought I might want it up on the steps, but I have changed my mind on that. And it is Platinum Beauty Lamandra. Now this is hardy only down to zone 8, but that's why I've got it in pots, so I can bring it in. But when you come and you get the long view over here to this planter box, and I will be putting in one more stepping stone here, it looks absolutely stunning flanking either side of the planter box. And I love the way when you come into the backyard, it's a completely different emotional vibe because the color palette is different. There's lots of grays. It has more of a Pacific Northwest vibe to it, I think, more, maybe even a little bit Mediterranean or coastal. And because of that, I wanted a different color palette. So back here, I am playing with the more intense reds, oranges, golds, those kind of colors in my crayon box. And the Platinum Beauty Lamandra gives me just the color, kind of neutral color palette that I want, and definitely a different, more cascading form for all of these plants to play on. So in the back here, I've used lots and lots of mounded plants, which I love, that rounded, mounded form. I've showed you guys my inspiration picture a number of times. So what I wanted was a dramatic counterpoint to these rounded forms, because that's kind of what gives emotional, visual, sensual interest, I think. And the Platinum Beauty is giving just the feel that I want. I love the way it cascades. I love the way that the variegation in it kind of brightens up this space and how it punctuates the corner. And then right now, I've got just my favorite kind of tomatoey red. I've got that in the box, and obviously, I don't know, Stuart, if you can see, there's already bees over here. They're already loving my composition.
Your pop of color. My
pop of color, and so these reds. Now, eventually, the geraniums, once it starts getting hotter and it's time for peppers and cherry tomatoes and things like that to cascade over the side, these will move, and this will be an edimental container with really ornamental edibles that I think will be beautiful in here. And I can just see those red cherry tomatoes cascading over and kind of insinuating themselves into the Platinum Beauty Lamandra. Now, in the past, this is kind of what I'm excited about. I have used this with some people that I've worked with in their gardens, largely in a pool setting, where we had them running up and down the steps, walking down to a pool, flanking the corners of poolside, because they can really handle the heat. They can handle reflected light off of pavement. But here I wanted to use them in a completely different way. And it's all trial and error. So I just kind of kept moving them around until I had my aha moment that this is where they need to be. And I think it's beautiful. So I've got this kind of verticality of them. They even have a little bit of these flower heads in here. And then I've got beautiful bold-leaved, just red pelargoniums. And then I've got some elephant bush. Now this will again change a little bit as it gets warmer, as I put in edibles, but what will remain, what the fixture plant is this Platinum Beauty Lamandra, because
Since you said it, we hadn't gotten
oh yeah, the elephant bush. And this will probably be relocated. As I said, the geraniums will probably be relocated. But right now, what I know for sure is that this stuff is going to stay here for the duration and into fall, and up until it goes into the greenhouse when temperatures start to really dive. So I think it looks wonderful. Stuart, here, let's put up a profile of Lamandra, of Platinum Beauty, and it truly is beautiful in all of its grassiness. We'll definitely put a link below. But here's my second question of the day. Actually, it's got two parts. If you grow Platinum Beauty, or if you are going to grow it, what colors would you grow it with? I can see it looking just dynamite with maybe Gold Sturm Rudbeckia, some of the gold colors. Magenta, I think, would be a really dark cardinal color. I think that would be beautiful. But it could also play with softer colors, whites and pinks. But this is how I'm using it. So if you grow it, if you plan to grow it, in the comments below, give us all more ideas of how this brilliant, really tough plant could be styled. And Stuart, right here, let's put up a picture of not only the plant profile, but let's put up a picture of how we styled it over at my friend Wendy's by her pool. We had it cascading up and down the steps. It was such a fun day when we styled that. So a couple of different ways, but I think it's going to give me just the look, just the feel that I want back here on the patio. I'll have not only the brilliant architectural look of it, but it's got movement, and it kind of blows and it cascades, and it's got kind of a waterfall effect. So I love that. Tell me your thoughts. Make sure to comment below. Well, here's another design tip. If you decide on your color palette for a space, see if you can carry that color palette through the seasons. So obviously when it gets to be summer, I'll have the intense reds of things like salvias and maybe coleus and just different different kinds of maybe pineapple sage, plants like that, that will bring in the red tones that I want. But I'm mindful of that even in the spring. So last year when I was composing, I was thinking about what I wanted to do back here. I knew that that was the emotional vibe that I wanted to have, was with those reds, golds, and colors that were a little bit deeper. And so I took that into account, and the color palette back here is decidedly more orange and red and gold. And you can see just a hint of that beginning right now with these tulips. I can't exactly remember which blend from Color Blends this was, but I love its arching form, and I'm going to take note of that. All of the ones that I planted in the front tend to be very chalice shaped, very cup shaped, and kind of vertical and squatty. The stem is beautiful, and it kind of arches, and even before it blooms, the bud itself is much more tapered and delicate, and I love that. So in my garden journal, I am going to be recording that this is a blend I definitely want to use again next year. I'll research what it was, and I'll make sure to put it in the links below. One of my favorite things about spring, and particularly around Easter, is that I can cut things from my garden, whether they are in bloom or they're not, to make my own Easter baskets, Easter buckets, Easter boots, whatever it is that I am composing for the Easter holiday. And I love this time of year because there's kind of this transition between the woody brown of winter and the fresh green of spring, and I love that. And I think it especially speaks to kind of almost what I would call a nest aesthetic for Easter. And one of my favorite plants to cut from, really almost any time of year, is Encore azaleas. So I've got some here that are not yet in bloom, but they have just what I want. They've got the fresh green growth that's coming out of the woody stem, and in some cases, yes, neon, and in some cases you can even see on the woody stem where the tender little new buds are, the new tufts of green that are coming out. So I am willing, as profusely as they bloom on this hedge here, I am willing to sacrifice a couple of the blooms. These have buds in them, but simply because I love the way the canes look and I love the color of the foliage on it. So I'm cutting some of these to use in an Easter basket composition, and soon enough it will be April, which to me is all about azaleas. Right now it's still a little bit early, but boy, by the time these are in full bloom they'll be spectacular. So I've got some here that I'm using just for the stems and the leaf color and the foliage, but let's go around here. I see a few early blooms, and I'm going to cut those. Well, in the front, I've often mentioned that I have mostly whites and pinks in terms of encore azaleas because I like that romantic color palette, but the back has a different vibe. So I have planted some autumn coral, these little autumn coral right here. I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. These guys are dwarf, and they're going to top out at 2.5 inches high and 3 feet wide, or 2.5 feet, I should say, high and 3 feet wide. And so once they ultimately mature, I may move some of them to the back, but right now it fits in perfectly with my color scheme and with my low mounding plant palette that I have surrounding the dining deck, and I think it's going to be beautiful. And look here, I can't wait because I am seeing, I do too.
They have a much like pointier.
Yeah, the foliage,
yeah,
it tends to be more of a sword-like leaf, and I've got a bud on it already, and these were just planted. So when these, so when these are in full bloom, I will definitely show you those, because April is, I just think April is azalea month. And specifically our favorite reblooming azaleas, encore azalea.
So nice they bloom twice.
Well, as long as I'm going to be going around to the other side of the cottage, I am going to take this moment to kind of groom along the brick wall a little bit and just appreciate how spectacular the tulips look. I mean, at first I wasn't real pleased with the performance of the blend, and that was because some of them just bloomed by themselves a little too early, but now it is spectacular, if I do say so myself.
Look at that yellow-orange guy all by himself right there.
Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, that's sunshine. Oh, this guy
yeah,
right here.
That one.
Yeah, isn't it beautiful?
Stand
That
out,
is,
yeah.
I think that, I'm not sure. That might have been an interloper. So we're going to walk along here.
I'm going slower.
And this is a fun little fact. This one right here is called Akabono.
Say what?
Akabono. I think it's probably a Japanese name. It's got that beautiful yellow foliage or yellow petals, but tinged in red on the end. A great color echo. I love that. So I'm going to appreciate these as I walk along the wall, not only to appreciate them, but also to look and see if there's anything else that I might want to cut from in the garden. And I spy a couple of things that might also have that kind of vibe of the encore azaleas, and that is a couple of stems of kaleidoscopabelia. Okay, so this has that look, that early spring look of woody meets emerging leaf growth that I just love. So I'm going to cut a few of that, and the more I cut, believe me, the fuller this will get. Obsession Nandina for me is more of a fall thing, but I'm going to round the corner.
Can we take a second to enjoy the fact that the light has already lasted this long?
Yeah, the light is just incredible today. Really, really incredible. It's making everything pop. And then why don't we take a break here, and I will meet you back on the other side. Okay, well, come on up to the upper terrace. I still have to clean up after topiarying my sunshine ligustrum, and I will do that a little bit later, but it is happy work because everything looks so beautiful out here. So I'm gonna let Stuart just kind of give you a glimpse of the pretty garden. I really want the encores to be the star of this composition, and I'm going to cut some of these blooms over here. You see I've got some of these, I think this is the Moonlight encore. But look at how prettily that's coming together.
That's cool.
And how just the different foliage looks just so gorgeous and so springy. So I am going to cut just a few. And the nice thing, the thing I love about encore azaleas is I know I can cut from them and I don't have to be stingy, because since they rebloom, I will have plenty more flowers to come. Look at how pretty that is.
It's a perfect shot.
Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that gorgeous? While I'm here, I might cut a little daffodil to play in the mix. This is what I call kind of gardening by Tussie Mussy, where you just hold something in your hand and you put it together in a composition, and if it looks beautiful in your hand, then it will probably look beautiful in a vase. Now, how springy does that look?
It's pure spring.
And again, I could get a completely different feel. You concentrate on that, Stuart. I'm going to come over here. I could get a completely different feel in my Easter bouquet if I used a different color.
Oh yeah.
And I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of grooving on that white.
It definitely.
But look at how different it would change if I brought in pinks.
It works really well though.
And I believe this is pink carnation. It will get more intensity of color a little bit later. But really, as far as a shrub goes, encore azaleas are absolutely indispensable, and as much because I love the looks of their stem as anything else. And even on occasion, even if I don't have any other blooms, if it's a time of year when the encores aren't in bloom, maybe even in winter, a lot of times I will just use the stems and then I will add my own blooms. So Stuart, what do you say? Let's take these beauties to the back and put together our centerpiece. Okay, I have all of my beautiful cuttings with encore azalea stems kind of being the diva in this Easter basket composition. I'm just using kind of a rustic meets delicate, kind of a high-low vibe. I just have 2 of these galvanized buckets, and I'm going to make 2, starting with this one right now. So all I've done is just got my cuttings here, and then I'm just gonna start playing, kind of using the azalea as a framework, because in addition to being beautiful with this dark kind of amber color stem, it also makes good structural support for the other things that I put in. Now I'm going to take my pruners and I'm going to do a vertical cut right there so that it can absorb the water more easily. See what I did there? Okay. And then I'm going to insert the cuttings into this wood pulp oasis. Now, I've told you guys about this before, and I like it a lot better than the other synthetic stuff. It's compostable, and I think it'll work fine. And just ignore all of the activity. Yeah, Stuart, I don't know. We may have to shoot this again, but I apologize. There's just always activity, and right now I think we've got some weed eaters. It will probably fade out over time. Okay, so right here, maybe I should just go quiet. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing here. And I like to put in the azalea stems first, again, because they are woody and they are a good support system. The other thing is I kind of like to put them around the perimeter so that they will kind of overhang. And can you see that wood pulp in there?
I got a shot of it.
Yeah. And I have really, really hydrated it. It's been soaking for about an hour. And I, of course, will keep watering this. And I'll probably have to zhuzh it a little bit before Easter because we're still a week out. But I'll probably have to zhuzh this arrangement so it still looks beautiful in time for Easter. But why is that easy to do? Because these are all cuttings of azaleas from my garden. And this wood pulp makes it really easy to insert them so that they kind of torque or arch in the direction you want them to go.
It has a very real organic look to it.
It does. It's very, we would call that Constant Spry. And Constant Spry was just a wonderful Victorian time floral designer, and she was the one who made cuttings from our gardens a more gardeny look, if you will. She was the one who really popularized that. Prior to that, it was more kind of, I don't know, kind of FTD looking. Ooh, that's a gorgeous branch right there. And you know what, Stuart? While we are waiting for the noise to go away, why don't you show some pretty pictures of the Encore azalea arrangement we made a couple of falls ago, and it was Encore azaleas and apples. A friend of mine, I really like this white. The ones that I've planted in the front are largely white. And a friend of mine who only plants white in her garden has planted a lot of, I believe it was Moonlight, or it might have been one of the other varieties, because you know Encore has so many different varieties and different hues. Might have been Autumn Lily.
Also a Linda.
Yes, also a Linda. Linda Kavanaugh. Now, I want a little bit of verticality, and I want to play up.
Oh, that one's cool, just how sparse they are on it the whole way up.
Yeah.
Oh, it reminds me of Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. And I may tuck a little bunny or something in here. Now, a trick that I'm going to use for these daffodils is...
Something got in my ear.
Something gotcha? Something gotcha? I noticed that the mosquitoes are already out.
Oh no, I thought I might have just felt one.
So a tip, when I insert the daffodils, first what I want to do is take something woody and puncture it so that when I get ready to put the daffodil in place, there's already a hole for it to go.
Oh, because it's not a very sturdy
Because
stem?
the stem is not sturdy, it's a lot softer.
Ah, good advice. That was a tip.
It never fails that when we are ready to meet you guys and shoot, that somebody has to come and blow. And we wait till they were finished, but you know, I'm getting ready to go to the Home and Garden Show here shortly and meet a bunch of you. So we're trying to get this done. So how's it looking, Stuart?
Beautiful.
So this is where I need to kind of go like this. It's kind of oriented that way. And then I will finish this up. Here is one. And then I will do the big reveal of the both of them on my Easter table, which I am so thrilled, Stuart. I may have not been able to have Thanksgiving out here in the back, but I am definitely going to be able to have Easter, at least thus far. That is what the weatherman is telling me. And I've got a big crowd coming over. So this kind of garden vibe will just be perfect. Ooh, I like the way that looks. I think it looks very sweet, very, very springy, very befitting the holiday and the season, and all with cuttings from my own garden, starring the lovely Encore Azalea. So there you go. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I love it. It is garden fresh. Encore azaleas are simply brilliant. I love it. Make sure to come back and see what it looks like in the context of my beautiful Easter table. I think we're going to be able to serve and have Easter outdoors. At least that's what the weatherman is telling me. Maybe not Thanksgiving, but definitely Easter. Also, make sure to tune in this Wednesday because it's going to be all about boxwood. I'm going to start talking about better boxwood, the blight-resistant boxwood, but also answer lots of questions I've been getting about boxwood in general. So just stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.